Liu Bu crossed over and became the unparalleled ghost god Liu Bu in the Three Kingdoms. Awakening Divine Level Selection System. Option 1. Surrender for peace, surrender to Cao Cao for survival. Reward. 10,000 taels of gold. 10,000 pieces of silk. 1 mansion in the Marquis' mansion. Option 2. Break through the encirclement, break out of the encirclement, and escape from the desperate situation. Reward. 3,000 wolf cavalry from Bingzhou. Option 3. Fight to the end and defeat Cao Cao's army. Reward. Is this still a choice? LV Bu, someone. Lift up Tianyang's Italian cannon for me. Keywords of the novel. I am the god of war, Liu Bu, in the Three Kingdoms without a pop-up window. I am the god of war, Liu Bu, in the Three Kingdoms. Download the full text. The latest chapter on reading. I am the god of war, Liu Bu, in the Three Kingdoms. Chapter 1. On the upper side of Xiapi City, inside the Baimen Tower. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1. On the upper side of Xiapi City, inside the Baimen Tower. Chapter 1. On the lower Pai City, inside the Baimen Tower. Shuzhou. The southern gate of Xiapi City, White Gate Tower. The sky was hazy and drizzling for several days, with continuous overcast and rainy weather. The roads inside and outside the city were muddy, making it difficult for soldiers and horses to travel. LV Bu stood on the city tower, gazing at the continuous barracks in the distance. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, and he couldn't see his thoughts at the moment. The soldiers around looked at Liu Bu with confidence in their hearts. Because this is Liu Bu, he is the current flying general, he is the god of war that shakes the world. Jun Ho, the 4 generals Song Xian, Ho Cheng, Qing Lian, and Wei Su have been taken down. How should we deal with them? Asked the tall general in battle armor. This person is Zhang Liao, a great general under LV Bu, and also one of the most trusted generals. Liu Bu didn't turn his head and said, slay it. No. Zhang Liao didn't hesitate and went straight down the city tower. In no time, 4 screams were heard. Without blinking his eyelids, Liu Bu looked straight at the military camp outside the city, with countless grievances and anger in his heart that were difficult to vent. Although he is Liu Bu, he is not his original self. Who would have thought that when he was about to successfully reach the pinnacle of his life, he would cross this era and become Liu Bu? Moreover, what he became was still Liu Bu from Xiapi City. No need to think, Liu Bu knows where he is now. White Gate Tower. The burial place of Liu Bu. Song Xian, Ho Cheng, Qing Lian, and Wei Su wanted to survive, so they wanted to tie him up and surrender to Cao Cao. Unfortunately, Liu Bu was already on the alert and directly took down the 4 people. It's not up to them to explain, just chop it off. After handling the 4 generals, Zhang Liao returned to the White Gate Tower. Feng Xian, it's not a problem to keep going. Zhang Liao, as the defender of Xiapi City, was responsible for guarding the entire city. He was too aware of the dire situation this city was facing now. More than 10,000 exhausted soldiers were besieged by Cao Cao's 50,000 elite soldiers, not to mention lacking food and supplies. There were strong enemies on the outside and traitors inside. As a general of the army, LV Bu only knew how to drink and have fun all day, seemingly losing his fighting spirit. At that time, Zhang Liao felt like someone had explained to him that the Sun City was broken, and he also believed it. But now, Zhang Liao feels that Liu Bu is different. Liu Bu seems to have regained his fighting spirit from his time in Bingzhou and his bravery from his time in Hulao. Consolidate the army, reward soldiers, and no longer hide in the city guard's mansion every day, but constantly discuss military affairs with him and Gao Shun, and discuss solutions with Qin Gong. The whole person is full of high fighting spirit. All of this gave Zhang Liao hope. Yeah, we can't keep going like this. Wen Yuan, "Go call Gong Tai and Gao Shun," said Lu Bu. Zhang Liao took orders and immediately went down to find Qingong and Gao Shun. As soon as Lu Bu thought about the situation he was facing at this moment, he couldn't help but sigh. Now he can almost be said to be in a desperate situation. The continuous rain prevented the cavalry from unleashing their power, and he, the world's #1 flying general, can only be trapped in the city now. But he doesn't want to die. He wants to live. So Lu Bu faced his soldiers with infinite fighting spirit, inspiring the courage of all the defending soldiers. He is a general and the soul of the Bingzhou army. As long as he stands here, no one dares to cause trouble. Song Xian and those 4 people also dared to take action when Lu Bu's willpower was low. If it were normal, how could they have the courage to take action against Lu Bu, who is the #1 in the world? If it had not been for him, who had just crossed over and was full of vigilance towards everything, that Song Xian and the others dared not take action at that time, and after knowing their own situation, he decisively let the loyal Zhang Liao and Gao Shun lead the trapped camp to arrest the 4 people. Perhaps it was the current LV Bu, who had already been tied tightly and thrown in front of Cao Cao, replaying the story of the White Gate Tower. At the thought of such an outcome, Lu Bu felt a violent surge in his heart. He will never let that ending happen again. Dong dong dong. The sound of war drums sounded like thunder. As soon as the rain stopped, the Chao army left the camp. 50,000 elite soldiers of the Chao army, who dared to fight, surrounded and killed the city of Xiapi from all sides. At the south gate of Xiapi city, in front of the White Gate Tower, Cao Cao rode a warhorse with General Cao Ren beside him. In addition to Cao Ren, there are also 3 people, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei, tied side by side. Obviously, these 3 people have already defected to Cao Cao. Lu Bu. You are at a dead end. Surrender now, there's still time. Otherwise, when the army breaks through the city gate, you will only have a dead end. A young general came out of the Chao army formation and shouted at LV Bu on the White Gate Tower. Looking at that young general, Lu Bu's heart was filled with infinite killing intent. When was the Tang dynasties when Ho Lu Bu suddenly shouted at by an unknown rat generation on the spot? Endless anger surged in his heart, but Lu Bu had no choice now. There are only over 10,000 exhausted troops in the city, and their energy has been exhausted by continuous defending battles. Such an army cannot defeat Cao Cao's elite army of 50,000 with high morale. The situation Lu Bu is currently facing is almost a dead end. Is it a dead end? No. It's not a dead end. Although I am outnumbered by the enemy, there is still a glimmer of hope. I am Lu Bu. The matter of the White Gate Tower, LV Bu doesn't want it to happen to him. The thought of facing a dead end as soon as I crossed over here, thinking of dominating the world but dying at the hands of a little boy, my predecessor's depression and unwillingness, my own anger towards fate, unlimited anger and fighting spirit erupted in Lu Bu. Looking at the noisy young general below the city, LV Bu snatched the bow from the nearby defending soldiers and drew an arrow. In an instant, the arrows shot like thunderbolts, piercing through the young general's head. Oh! 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 This arrow has boosted the morale of the defending soldiers. Cao Cao. Liu Bei. Chen Deng. Chen Long. Just wait for me. Drip. Sensing the host's fighting spirit, the system is activating. Divine Level Selection System, loading. Divine Level Selection System loading completed. Detected host as Lu Bu. Identity. Endless Marquee. Location. Xiapi City. Drip. Divine Level Selection to start. Option 1. Surrender and seek peace, surrender to Cao Cao and beg for survival. Reward. 10,000 taels of gold. 10,000 pieces of silk. A mansion in the Marquis' mansion. Option 2. Break through the encirclement, break out of the encirclement, and escape from the desperate situation. Reward: 3,000 Bingzhou Wolf Riders. Option 3. Fight to the end and defeat the Chao army. Reward: 500 Divine Machine Camp. 3 options appeared before Lu Bu's eyes. The emergence of the system was not surprising to Lu Bu. After all, he had encountered things like traveling through time. It was normal for a system to appear. Among the 3 options, the most eye-catching one is the first one, which is to surrender to Cao Cao. But Lv Bu knew who Cao Cao was. Although he was the leader, he was naturally suspicious, let alone the big-eared thief Liu Bei who was still there. After surrendering, Lv Bu believed that Cao Cao would definitely give him 10,000 taels of gold and silk. However, Liu Bei would definitely interfere with it. Maybe as soon as he got it, he would be beheaded the next moment. Looking eye-catching, it's a dead end, only 2 or 3 can make a living. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Field Operations Zhang Fei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Field Operations Zhang Fei. Chapter 2 Field Operations Zhang Fei, Your Majesty. Fengxian. 2 different forms of address sound simultaneously. Lu Bu turned his head and saw that Zhang Liao, Chen Gong, and Gao Shun had arrived. Gong Tai. Lu Bu gestured to the Chen Palace. Fengxian, now that Cao Cao's army is under siege and has already surrounded Xiapi, what do you think? Chen Gong asked bluntly. A man born in heaven and earth, even if he dies, must fight to death in a dignified manner on the battlefield. How can he still fight like a trapped beast? Defending the isolated city is not my intention. I intend to open the city gate and fight to the death against Cao Cao. Liu Bu was extremely ambitious, and his high fighting spirit ignited the passion of the soldiers. Deadly battle. Deadly battle. Deadly battle. Drip. The host chooses to engage in a decisive battle with Cao Cao. After completing the selection, the 500 Divine Machine Battalion has joined the host camp's army. The soldiers were drinking loudly, their voices so loud that Cao Cao outside the city couldn't help but frown. The continuous siege of the city, coupled with several days of rainy weather, has left the soldiers under Lv Bu's command with such morale. It's not a good thing. Upon hearing Cao Cao's words, Liu Bei beside him spoke up, Duke Cao, if Liu Bu is not eliminated, it may be a major disaster. Cao Cao didn't speak, but looked at Lv Bu and Chen Gong on the White Gate Tower. It was nothing to separate the two, but when combined, it was his great calamity. If it weren't for Chen Gong's command, how could Lv Bu dare to sneak attack his Yanzhou at that time? Liu Bu took a deep breath and shouted loudly to the city below, Cao thief. Do you dare to step forward? Cao Cao looked at Liu Bu on the top of the city and rode forward, but maintained a distance of at least 500 steps. This distance, whether it was a strong bow, crossbow, or a catapult, could not pose any threat to him. Although Lv Bu also wanted to take the opportunity to kill Cao Cao, Cao Cao was too far away from the city gate, and even the cannons of the Shenji camp could not reach this distance. So Liu Bu gave up the idea of killing Cao Cao here. Fengxian, what am I supposed to do? Cao Cao looked calm and relaxed, very relaxed. After all, at this time, his 50,000-strong army had already surrounded Xiapi, and Lv Bu had no food or supplies inside and no reinforcements outside. What could he do to turn the tables on? Cao thief, will you dare to fight with me in the field tomorrow? Upon hearing this, Cao Cao almost laughed and said, Fengxian, there are only 10,000 remaining soldiers in Xiapi city. How dare you fight with me in the field? All right. Tomorrow, we'll wait outside the city for you. Ha ha ha. Cao Cao laughed and returned to the camp. Although the returning Cao seemed confident, he still frowned when he returned to the tent. Cao Gong, but what's wrong? Liu Bei asked. Liu Bu is just an ordinary person, and his liver and gallbladder have been broken. How dare he still fight with me in the field? Maybe this is Chen Gong's plan, Cao Cao said. Cao Ren was puzzled and said, why would the Prime Minister still agree to Liu Bu's field battle tomorrow? Our army of 50,000 elite soldiers has been besieging Xiapi for half a month. The people in Xiapi city are tired and the horses are tired, and the continuous rainy weather makes it difficult for Liu Bu's Western Liang horses to advance. Why don't we dare to fight with our 50,000 elite soldiers in the field? Cao Cao asked in response. At this moment, in the city of Xiapi, Chen Gong looked at Liu Bu with worry. Feng Xian, having courage is a good thing, but our army can only fight over 8,000 soldiers now. How can we compete with 50,000 elite soldiers from the opposite side? Even if you are brave enough, can you still strangle 50,000 people? Looking at the worried Chen Palace, Liu Bu smiled confidently and said, Gong Tai, don't worry, I have my own plan. Chen Gong looked at Liu Bu, who was full of confidence and knew he couldn't persuade him, so he had to say, I hope. Dong! 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 The sound of war drums thundering, like waves of muffled thunder, stimulates people's emotions and makes soldiers' blood boil. Outside the city of Xiapi, wearing a childish chicken crown, wearing a beast-faced swallowing head chain armor, with a waist tied with 100 flowers of brocade and tiger skin battle shoes, Liu Bu rode on a red rabbit horse. His sharp Fang Tian painted halberd pointed diagonally at the ground, and the bright red phoenix nirvana cloak behind him was hunted by the wind. Just one person and one horse, but it gives people a heavy sense of oppression like facing thousands of soldiers and horses. This is Liu Bu, the top general in the world. Truly worthy of being a Liu Bu among people and a red rabbit among horses. Cao Cao sighed. No matter how many times he saw Liu Bu, every time he dressed neatly and rode a red rabbit horse, his heroic demeanor always made him yearn. This kind of world's #1 fierce general can be said to be what Cao Cao's soul yearns for. 8,000 Bingzhou wolves rode in a neat queue behind Liu Bu, with General Zhang Liao personally leading the team and standing beside Liu Bu holding a war knife. Among the 8,000 wolf cavalry in Bingzhou, Gao Shun personally led 800 trapped camp warriors to guard a battalion of soldiers wearing red tassels and red battle armor. These soldiers did not carry long spears, bows, and crossbows, but instead each held a long firearm with a waist knife hanging from their waist. The 500 divine machine camp was hidden among the cavalry by Liu Bu, waiting for a stunning attack to erupt. On the other side, Cao Cao gathered a whole army of 30,000, with one soldier in formation. Cao Ren, the general of the Cao army, and Guan Yu and Zhang Fei under Liu Bei were all here. Looking at Cao Cao and Liu Bei across from him, Liu Bu's eyes narrowed slightly, and a fierce killing intent lingered. Without waiting for both sides to talk, Zhang Fei suddenly rode out. 3 surnames of domestic slaves, fight against your grandfather Zhang Fei, 3 Lily. Boom. Anger burns in Liu Bu's heart, 3 family slaves. Zhang Fei's words completely angered Liu Bu. As he looked at Zhang Fei shouting, Liu Bu slightly pinched his horse's belly and the red hair horse let out a long hiss and rushed out. Boom. 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 Red rabbits and horses, all red as blood, rushed towards Zhang Fei, wearing a beast-face swallowing head chain armor on their back and a phoenix nirvana cloak. Liu Bu, holding a square sky painting halberd, rushed towards Zhang Fei with a fierce killing intent. In an instant, Zhang Fei felt immense pressure. The current Liu Bu seems to be even more terrifying than the Liu Bu under Tiger Prison. Damn it, take a spear from Grandpa Zhang. Zhang Fei clenched the spear pole, and the 8-point snake spear in his hand danced quickly, poking out countless points in the air, like a pear blossom needle in a rainstorm. No wonder Zhang Fei loves to say he wants to poke 100 holes in people. He really has this ability. Unfortunately, he is facing Lu Bu. Humph. With a snort of anger, Lu Bu's Fang Tianhua Ji drew a line of exercise from bottom to top, and the silver sharpness almost tore Zhang Fei in half. The combination of gold and iron, Zhang Fei's hands holding the Zhangba snake spear were trembling. How could it be possible? Zhang Fei widened his eyes and looked at LV Bu. It seemed that LV Bu's strength had become stronger. Has his strength improved again? Shouldn't this be Zhang Fei die? In spite of Zhang Fei's surprise, LV Bu suddenly shouted and drew a round track in the air with Fang Tian's painting halberd in his hand. Then he pressed down like Mount Tai, and the crescent moon blade directly hit Zhang Fei's head. In an instant, a piercing silver training fell from the sky. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Overcoming the Battle of Guanzhang Shenji Camp. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Overcoming the Battle of Guanzhang Shenji Camp. Chapter 3. Overcoming the Battle of Guanzhang Shenji Camp. Bang. It's a combination of gold and iron again. The Fang Tianji, which LV Bu had slain with all his might, was blocked by Guan Yu, who hurriedly arrived with the green dragon Yenhua blade. With his eyes wide open in anger, LV Bu looked at Guan Yu, who had widened his eyes, and his voice was as cold as an icy hell. You're looking for death. With a roar, Lu Bu pressed down the Fang Tianhua halberd in his hand, and Pang ran vigorously past it onto the Qinglong Yenhua blade. Guan Yu could feel the veins on his arms bulging. Ah! Zhang Fei felt like he had lost his adult, so he picked up his Zhangba snake spear and stabbed LV Bu. But how could Lu Bu not be on guard against him? Fang Tianhua's halberd pressed down fiercely, then rebounded and collected it with the help of Guan Yu's power, followed by a sweeping sweep that forced Zhang Fei and Guan Yu back. The red hair horse took 2 spiritual steps back. Fang Tianhua's halberd pointed diagonally at Zhang Fei and Guan Yu on the opposite side. LV Bu looked at Liu Bei's 2 brothers, the future 5 tiger generals, and chuckled lightly, saying, "Do you 2 dare to argue with me? 3 family slaves, die for grandpa." Zhang Fei became angry and rode his warhorse towards Lu Bu. 3rd brother. Guan Yu was different from Zhang Fei. He clearly felt that something was wrong with LV Bu, but he couldn't stop Zhang Fei, who was furious and could only follow suit. Zhang Fei from the province was injured by LV Bu. Hee, let's go together. Lu Bu pinched the horse's belly, and the red rabbit horse roared towards Guan Yu and Zhang Fei. The square-drawn halberd in his hand danced, and in an instant, the sky was covered with halberd shadows, making it impossible to distinguish which was true and which was fake. Damn it, how did this thief Lu Bu become so powerful? Zhang Fei also noticed something was wrong. Lu Bu's halberd technique was too powerful and domineering, making it impossible for him to catch his breath. Liu Bei watched as Guan Yu and Zhang Wei were being beaten by LV Bu, and his hands gripping the reins had bulging veins. The situation was not good. At this moment, LV Bu was becoming more and more brave in battle. He had integrated his predecessor's experience in various combat techniques, and in his hand, the Fang Tianhua halberd seemed to have spirituality. After drawing a dazzling arc in the air, he suddenly made an upward thrust. The silver training was like a full moon, and the sobbing sound of Fang Tianhua's halberd piercing through the air sounded like a deadly note to Zhang Fei. Blood splatters everywhere. Zhangba's snake spear slipped and fell to the ground. Zhang Fei looked at Lu Bu in horror. He didn't even see what was going on earlier, so he was injured in the arm by Lu Bu and even had a blood stain on his chest. 3rd brother. Liu Bei couldn't help but take action, but was grabbed by Cao Cao. Xuanda. Don't be impulsive, quickly make your 2nd and 3rd brothers come back. Liu Bei's eyes were almost on fire. Zhang Fei and Guan Yu were his brothers, and they were also the foundation for him to dominate the world. If either of them were injured, he would feel heartbroken. 2nd brother. 3rd brother. Come back quickly. Liu Bei shouted loudly. Guan Yu already had the intention to retreat, but Zhang Fei was injured and he was unable to take care of Zhang Fei while fighting against Lvbu. Retreating at this time was the best option. After the Qinglong Yanhua blade blocked Fang Tianhua's halberd, Guan Yu angrily said, "Third brother. Are you still not retreating?" Zhang Fei also knew that he had been reckless this time, so he picked up the Zhangba snake spear and rode backwards. After Zhang Fei fled back to the army, Guan Yu also withdrew. From Guan Yu's slightly disheveled appearance, it was evident that his retreat was not easy. Looking at Liu Bu again, he was unscathed and full of energy, with no signs of embarrassment. The Phoenix Nirvana cloak behind is as bright as blood, and the immature chicken crest on the head is even more brilliant. Riding on a red rabbit horse, holding a square sky painting halberd, Liu Bu's heart is filled with boundless passion. There are red rabbits and horses, there are square sky painted halberds, and the world allows them to roam freely. Let's go to war. Cao Cao knew he couldn't let Lvbu continue to show off, otherwise his morale would be low, and there was a possibility of defeat in this battle. Go to war. Go to war. Cao Ren shouted loudly, commanding his soldiers to start charging. The sword and shield soldiers were in front, the spearman was at the back, and the archers mixed in. One by one, the army launched an attack on Liu Bu's army. Liu Bu sneered. He was waiting for the moment when the other party sent troops. The 500 divine machine camp would tell Cao Cao how terrifying the power of surpassing the times was. Gao Shun. Liu Bu shouted loudly. Gao Shun immediately leads the trapped camp forward. 800 warriors in formation, lined up in 2 rows, protecting the 500 divine machine camp behind them. Cao Cao looked at the army formation of just over 1,000 people sent out across from him, and suddenly felt a sense of unease in his heart. He felt that he might be defeated in this battle. Cao Ren led the army forward, only 400 steps away from the Liu Bu army. At this distance, soldiers can charge towards the enemy with just one charge. 500 soldiers from the Shenji camp wearing red battle armor and red tassels have calmly raised their firearms. They are the elite soldiers who have fought for over 100 years, and they hold the firearms of their peak period. As the undisputed elite in the Mingjing camp, the soldiers of the Shenji camp can rival nearly 10,000 with 500 soldiers. 300 steps away. The soldiers of Shenji camp aimed at the opposite army formation. 200 steps away. The soldiers of Shenji camp have already lit the fire rope. 150 steps away. Fire. With the roar of the Shenji camp officials, the first row of Shenji camp soldiers opened fire together. Boom. The sound of hundreds of firearms firing in an instant not only shocked Cao Cao's army, but also shocked our own soldiers. This sounds like an avalanche, the flames and smoke of explosion. What weapon is this? If it weren't for Liu Bu letting the soldiers stuff the ears of the warhorses with cloth in advance, I'm afraid at this time, the 8,000 Western Liang warhorses under his command would have blown up the camp. Boom. Boom. On the battlefield, at this moment, there was only the thunderous roar of the firearm firing. 500 firearms were divided into 3 batches and fired in sequence. The concentrated burst of bullets dealt a terrible blow to the advancing Cao army. The front formation is now disabled. The shield is pierced, and the leather armor on the body cannot stop the bullet's attack at all. Even the iron armor may not be able to block the bullet strike. Unless it is a fish scale armor or an iron leaf armor, ordinary 2-tier armor cannot withstand the terrifying killing power of bullets. After the 3 waves of gunfire attacks, only the painful moans and howls of Chao's wounded soldiers remained on the battlefield. The battlefield is silent. The soldiers of the Cao army looked at the fiery weapon across from them, and each one felt their legs weakening. What kind of weapon is this? With a thunderous explosion and a burst of sparks and smoke, one's comrade was injured and killed. Is this a magic tool? At this moment, Cao Cao's face was extremely gloomy. His hands were clenched into fists, and he finally knew why his heart was uneasy. Originally, there were so many terrifying weapons in Lu Bu's army. The biggest blow of the firearm to the Cao army was not personnel damage, but a morale blow. In the era of reverence for ghosts and gods, firearms were nothing more than witchcraft and magical tools that could take people's lives out of thin air. Invisible attacks made the soldiers of the Cao army feel uneasy. Even these elites are extremely anxious at this moment. And the second wave of strikes from Shenji camp has also arrived at this time. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The collapse of the Cao army and the descent of demons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The collapse of the Cao army and the descent of demons. Chapter 4. The collapse of the Cao army and the descent of demons and gods. Boom. A loud and even louder roar sounded than before. This loud roar was like the roar of a dragon, completely shattering the liver and gallbladder of Cao's soldiers. 500 soldiers from the Shenji camp shot together, and the roaring of 500 firearms erupted, hitting large areas of Cao's soldiers in front of them. It looks like an invisible sickle of death, and with a gentle stroke, it reaps a large number of lives. The barrage of bullets spilled out, and in an instant, hundreds of Cao soldiers fell to the ground in agony. Although these casualties were not a blow to Cao Cao, who had a 50,000-strong army. But the blow to morale is unparalleled. No one wants to take their life away from the dark pipe across from them like this. So, after this round of Shenji camp's volley was completed, the Cao army collapsed. Devil. This is the devil's weapon. The weapons in their hands must be witchcraft. No, I don't want to die here, I don't want to die here. Let's run, we can't win against the witchcraft. The 10,000 Cao army ahead has collapsed. Tens of thousands of people fled aimlessly, driving the entire Cao army's formation of 50,000 soldiers to be completely dispersed. Especially the soldiers behind couldn't see clearly what was happening ahead. As they watched their comrades start to flee, they also began to flee, causing the entire Cao army to collapse. Jiangdong stood on the city tower, staring blankly at the collapse of the 50,000 Cao army below the city. Fengxian, is this your trump card? No wonder you have such confidence in such a means. Zhang Liao and Gao Shun both looked at Lu Bu in surprise. They didn't know when Lu Bu had such a terrifying soldier in his hand. The weapons these people held could take lives and be invisible. Is this Lu Bu's trump card? At this moment, Cao Cao and Liu Bei, who were in the Cao army's formation, remained silent, their faces looking extremely ugly. The collapse of tens of thousands of people led to the collapse of the entire army. Once such a thing happens, he knows the consequences very well. But even if generals such as Cao Ren fought desperately to stop the soldiers from fleeing, is there still time? Liu Bu looked at the fleeing Cao army in a disheveled state, clenched the Fang Tianhua halberd in his hand, and pointed the tip of the halberd with a cold light directly at the Cao army's banner on the opposite side. Bingzhou Wolf Rider, charge with me. Liu Bu's roar on the battlefield was like thunder. 8,000 wolf cavalry from Bingzhou were already shocked by the barrage of cannons. Seeing the Cao army fleeing, everyone's morale was boosted and they followed Liu Bu's charge, roaring loudly. Gao Shun led the trapped camp and escorted the 500 Shenji battalions who had completed their mission back to the city of Xiapi, while the 8,000 Bingzhou wolf cavalry followed Lu Bu and Zhang Liao in launching their final attack on the Cao army. Boom boom boom. The earth is trembling, the earth is swaying. 8,000 iron cavalry charge in unison, tens of thousands of hooves trample on the earth. The feeling of earth shaking and mountains shaking, the long spear torrent composed of nearly 10,000 cavalry, is enough to crush the morale of any army. Especially for armies like the Cao army, whose morale has already collapsed, facing the charge of nearly 10,000 cavalry, led by the world-renowned brave General Lv Bu, they collapsed even faster one by one. They simply wish they had 2 more legs, lost weapons, lost flags, and lost heavy armor. Now, everything is for the sake of escaping. When 8,000 wolf cavalry from Bingzhou followed Lu Bu to charge, Cao Cao closed his eyes. He knows that he has already lost this battle. The charge launched by Lu Bu personally led by 800 cavalry, not to mention his fleeing 50,000 troops, even the 50,000 elite soldiers who were on high alert, were difficult to resist. This is the power of cavalry. This is the power of the world's most powerful general personally stepping forward. In his hand, Fang Tian drew a halberd and circled, dancing in the sky with shadows of halberds. Cold flashes flickered in between, blood splattered, and mournful cries filled the fields. Lu Bu rode a red rabbit horse at full speed and headed straight for Cao Cao. Along the way, both the Cao soldiers who wanted to resist and those who wanted to escape were cut off by the cold awns. Boom boom boom. The sound of horse hooves became increasingly clear. When the red rabbit horse galloped forward like a flame, carrying Lu Bu forward, the terrifying deterrent force was simply suffocating. The beast face swallowing head chain armor on Lu Bu's body is as bright as a mirror, and the bright red phoenix nirvana cloak behind him dances and hunts with the wind, coupled with the fiery red rabbit and rouge horse under his crotch. The combination of humans, Lu Bu, horses, and red rabbits is like the descent of an ancient demon god, making all Cao army generals who attempt to resist Lu Bu breathless. Lu Bu, don't be reckless. Come on in. With a loud shout, a member of the Cao army general rode a warhorse and waved a large sword to charge towards Lu Bu. A cold light flickers. The Fangtian painted halberd falls from top to bottom like a crescent moon. This Cao army general named Lejin was split in half with a single halberd before he could react. Prime Minister. Quickly withdraw. Prime Minister. Let's go quickly. Prime Minister, leave the Green Mountains without worrying about having no firewood to burn. Hurry up and withdraw. We still have over 100,000 troops in Yenzhou and Yuzhou. Prime Minister, let's go. Listening to the persuasion of the generals, Cao Cao closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. Let's withdraw. Cao thief. Don't try to escape. Lu Bu let out a furious roar, like thunder exploding in the ears of the generals of the Cao army. Looking at the red rabbit horse and Lu Bu, who came rushing like flames not far away, and the horse descending like a god and demon, a terrifying killing intent enveloped Cao Cao and all the generals. Under this killing intent, Cao Cao, who had just been feeling dizzy, suddenly regained consciousness. Run away. Everyone, run away. Cao Cao shouted and ran aimlessly towards the camp under the protection of Cao Ren. Stop Lu Bu. The loyal generals of Cao Cao rushed forward in an attempt to stop Lu Bu and earn time for Cao Cao to escape. Whoever stops me will die. A roar, like the roar of a fierce tiger, thunder piercing through my ears. In Lu Bu's hand, Fang Tianhua's halberd suddenly drew a silver training line in the air, like a full moon. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. 3 Cao army generals who advanced were directly killed by Lu Bu's one halberd. No fancy moves or skills are needed. A single sweep is enough to kill all incoming enemies. Lu Bu's halberd technique can be said to be at its peak, combined with his already skilled cavalry skills and the assistance of divine horses like the red hair horse, coupled with Lu Bu's unparalleled power. Who can stop it? Who dares to stop? Watching 3 colleagues being killed by Lu Bu, the Cao army generals were both shocked and angry. Suddenly, 5 more generals roared and rushed forward. Seeking death. Lu Bu snorted coldly, and with the Fang Tian painted halberd in his hand, he drew a line of training from bottom to top. The Cao army general who rushed to the front immediately surrendered. Everyone will die for Ben. Lu Bu is furious. What kind of miscellaneous people dare to come and shout and rush over? Suddenly leaping up from the red rabbit's horse, Lu Bu's Fang Tianhua halberd danced fiercely and fell down. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. 3 chases Cao Cao and achieves a perfect victory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. 3 chases Cao Cao and achieves a perfect victory. Chapter 5. 3 chases Cao Cao and achieves a complete victory. Boom. After the clash of gold and iron, Fang Tianhua's halberd swung down with unstoppable force, cutting another Cao army general in half with his horse. Blood splatters. Standing on the corpse, LV Bu's front chest, adorned with a beast face and a chain of armor, had already been dyed red with blood. The Phoenix Nirvana cloak on my back makes a sound of hunting, and the crescent blade of the Fang Tian painted halberd in my hand is still dripping with blood. Just standing there, it feels like an invincible demon god. The soldiers and generals of the Cao army around were almost heartbroken when they saw this scene. Can such an existence really be overcome? Liu Bu looked coldly at the Cao army general who stopped his horse's hooves and the surrounding Cao army soldiers. Whoever stops me, die. A roar completely shattered the thoughts of these Cao army generals and soldiers attempting to stop Liu Bu. Run. Run away quickly. Run quickly. Get out of here. Whether it was the generals or soldiers of the Cao army, they were all rushing to escape from Liu Bu, wishing their parents had 2 more legs, and they ran away quickly. Sifo Law. The red rabbit horse walked leisurely to Liu Bu's side, and the huge horse head affectionately rubbed against Liu Bu's head. Liu Bu also smiled and touched the head of the red rabbit horse, then flipped over and mounted the horse, looking at the Bingzhou wolf cavalry that had already gathered behind him. He shouted loudly. All army. Follow me to charge. Boom. 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 The sound of horse hooves is like thunder, causing the earth to tremble and terrifying. 8,000 wolf cavalry from Bingzhou howled like a strong wind sweeping away fallen leaves, capturing the frightened soldiers of the Cao army who had fled. Faced with the defeated Cao army, 8,000 cavalry soldiers were the last straw to crush this army. Liu Bu rode a red rabbit horse and chased after Cao Cao first. Others could survive, but Cao Cao and Liu Bei must stay here. The red rabbit horse is the #1 divine horse in the world. Even if Cao Cao and his companions fled first, LV Bu gradually caught up. Looking at Cao Cao's banner in front of him, LV Bu took a deep breath, placed Fang Tian's painted halberd horizontally, and took out his strong bow. Taking out a wild goose feather arrow, on the galloping red rabbit horse, LV Bu arched and aimed an arrow at Cao Cao's banner, then shot an arrow. Bowstring vibration. The arrow is like a startled swan. With the howling of the breaking wind, Cao Cao's banner was shot off by LV Bu's arrow, and even the cavalry of the Cao army in front was hit by an arrow, causing his heart to fall from his horse. The banner fell, and this scene made the generals and knights around Cao Cao show expressions of shock. A few people turned their heads and exclaimed in shock, "It's Liu Bu is chasing after us." Upon hearing that Liu Bu was chasing after him, these people were so scared that they fought desperately to beat the warhorses under their crotch, causing them to accelerate their escape. Now, no one wants to face Liu Bu. Watching the battle armor stained with blood, LV Bu, who dares to step forward and stop him like a demon. Kill. Liu Bu. Fang Tian pointed his halberd at Cao Cao, who was wearing a cloak, and angrily said, "The one wearing the cloak is the Cao thief. Chase and kill the Cao thief. Kill the Cao thief. Kill me." The wolf cavalry of Bingzhou behind Liu Bu immediately roared and charged towards Cao Cao wearing a cloak. Cao Cao turned his head and looked at the densely packed Bingzhou wolf cavalry chasing after him. His body stumbled and he almost fainted. With a ruthless heart, Cao Cao took off this precious cloak and threw it out casually. Jun Ho. That bandit took off his cloak and hid among the soldiers, it's hard to find. Zhang Liao said. Liu Bu looked at the cloak on the ground and thought for a moment before saying, "Among the Cao army, only the Cao bandits have long beards and continue to pursue. The ones with long beards are the Cao bandits." Follow them and kill them. Yes. The bearded ones are Chao bandits. The whole army is chasing Chao bandits. Zhang Liao shouted, leading the Bingzhou wolf cavalry to continue the pursuit. An Lvbu was at the forefront, and Cao Cao, who was chasing on a red rabbit horse, had no chance to stop and catch his breath. Those with long beards are Chao thieves. Kill Chao thieves. Listening to the roar from behind, Cao Cao looked at his long beard that he had finally grown, gritted his teeth, and directly cut it off with a knife, leaving only the short beard, and then continued to flee. Your Majesty, it seems that the bandit Chao has cut off his beard. Zhang Liao saw that there was no target with long beards and quickly shouted to Lu Bu. If he cuts off his long beard, can he still cut off all his beard? There must be short beards. Those with short beards must be Chao bandits. The whole army will follow me to hunt down Chao bandits. Lu Bu said loudly. No. The short-bearded one is a bandit, the whole army is chasing after the bandit. Zhang Liao began to pass the message to the rear. For a moment, the wolf cavalry in Bingzhou was filled with high spirits who said, those with short beards are Chao thieves, chasing and killing Chao thieves. This time, it completely cooled Cao Cao's heart. Is it difficult? Is it true that Cao Cao will die in the hands of Lu Bu today? Prime Minister, hurry up. Cover your face. Cao Ren tore off his clothes and quickly handed them to Cao Cao. Cao Cao's eyes lit up, he covered his face with a corner of his clothes, and then followed Cao Ren and began to flee. This battle, since the outbreak of war, when Chao's army collapsed, just a few sticks of incense time. However, Lu Bu led his army to pursue Cao Cao, but it took him a whole hour. 1 hour. It's just that Cao Cao ran away. A force of 50,000 soldiers scattered across the land, looking at the scattered army scattered all over the mountains and fields. It was very difficult for Lu Bu to find Cao Cao among so many scattered soldiers. Cao Cao has escaped. In this battle, Lu Bu won cleanly and with great prestige. Within the city of Xiapi, the only generals in the Lu Bu army, Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, along with Lu Bu and Chen Gong, hosted a banquet in the hall. In this battle, you even killed several generals of Cao Cao, but Lu Jin let you kill them. In the end, the one who chased after Cao Cao lost his robe and cut his beard, feeling embarrassed. Your reputation in this battle has greatly increased. This Shuzhou is still your own. Zhang Liao's loyalty to Lu Bu goes without saying since he followed him in Bingzhou. Watching Lu Bu go from a desperate situation to a desperate counterattack and then defeat Cao Cao, he was happier than anyone else. Chen Gong also said, Feng Xian, we have won this battle against Cao Cao. Do you have any plans in the future? The gentle and watery beauty filled Lu Bu's cup with wine. Lu Bu played with the cup and said, I want to leave Shuzhou. Leaving Shuzhou. Both Chen Gong and Zhang Liao were startled by Lu Bu's decision. That's right, we're leaving Shuzhou. Lu Bu spoke and stood up, pointing towards the map of Shuzhou behind him. Look. Shuzhou is a 4-battle area, with a status equivalent to the 9 southern counties of Jingxiang. However, Shuzhou has no Jingxiang Changjiang Tianjian, with a terrain that extends in all directions and flat roads. Our army is only 10,000 people, and although it is elite, it is difficult to resist the armies on all sides. Yuan Shao from Jizhou, Gongsun Zan from Yuzhou, Yuan Shu from Yangzhou, and even Cao Cao, who had just been defeated in the war, could come forward at any time. Cao Cao not only had Yenzhou, but also had over 100,000 soldiers and horses under his command. After listening to Lv Bu's words, Chen Gong also fell into silence. Yes, it's not easy to defend the 4 battlefields in Shuzhou. Feng Xian, according to your wishes, where should we go? Didi. Option 1. Go south to Jiangnan. Reward 1 Jingxiang Navy. Option 2. Go north to Yuzhou. Reward Yuzhou Iron Cavalry 8,000. Option 3. Go west to Guanlong. Reward 1 Gunpowder Bureau. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Soldiers enter Guangling and defeat Sheyang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Soldiers enter Guangling and defeat Sheyang. Chapter 6. Soldiers enter Guangling and defeat Sheyang. Where are we going? Liu Bu pondered deeply. Yuzhou, Jiangdong, and Guanzhang. 3 places represent different choices for Liu Bu in the future. If it's going to Yuzhou, then it's about developing the military and going south to compete with Yuan Shao and Cao Cao for dominance. But the greatest possibility is that Yuan Shao and Cao Cao will work together to kill themselves in Yuzhou first. Moreover, Gongsun Zan has a strong influence in Yuzhou, and the strength of his Yuzhou knights cannot be underestimated. And if we go to Jiangdong? Jiangdong is the territory of aristocratic families, and the situation there is already complex. Even wherever the Sun family is, they have to rely on the power of aristocratic families to govern the place. If Liu Bu goes, it depends on the faces of these people. Moreover, the southern water network is dense, and the role of the navy in the south far surpasses that of cavalry. The elite cavalry under my command, who have fought for hundreds of battles, have gone to the south, not just a useless land. More likely, it will be corroded by the gentle countryside in the south. How else will you go north by then? Whether it's Yuzhou Iron Cavalry or Jingxiang Navy, Liu Bu wants it all. But this is not in line with the current development of Liu Bu. Only Guanzhang is the most suitable place for Liu Bu to go now. Thinking of this, Liu Bu said, I have made up my mind to go to Guanzhang. The host makes a decision to go to Guanzhang. After arriving at Guanzhang, reward the Gunpowder Bureau. The reward from the system was only given after arriving at Guanzhang. Is it possible that you are still afraid of wasting your time in a gunpowder game? Guanzhang. Guanzhang is a good place. Chen Gong seemed to understand Liu Bu's thoughts. The people in Guanzhang were devastated by the 18th Route Allied forces, and large areas of fertile land were left uncultivated. The casualties among the people were even more severe. How could it be a good place? Zhang Liao expressed his confusion. That's why no one pays attention to Guanzhang. Once we go to Guanzhang and defend the pass, we can develop our internal affairs. Guanzhang has a fertile land of thousands of miles, which is already the foundation of Wangba. Occupying Guanzhang, we can rest with the people's livelihood, and in less than 10 years, Guanzhang can restore its former glory. At that time, we can wait for the opportunity to go east first. Why did Qin become a hegemon in the past? It was nothing more than occupying the territories of Guanzhong and Sichuan. Upon hearing Chen Gong's words, Zhang Liao suddenly realized. I see, Zhang Liao has been taught. Looking at Zhang Liao, who seemed to have some enlightenment, Liu Bu smiled and said, When Yuan, you still need to learn more. Although it was a banquet, what the 4 of them were more interested in was their future plans. As a general of the First Army, Liu Bu cannot say that he will guard Xiapi in the future and live a life of being a wealthy man in a chaotic era. What warm fragrant soft jade! What kind of wealthy life! Born in this chaotic world, if you don't take advantage of this opportunity to establish a powerful career, will you still have to be driven by others and become a small soldier who works hard? Alright, everyone disperse. Go back and strengthen the city defense to prevent the Chao army from attacking at night. At the same time, prepare the army in horses. In 3 days, our army will depart. No. Whether it was Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, or Chen Gong, Qi stood up and said. At this moment, they saw once again the high fighting spirit from Liu Bu, the kind of unwillingness to accept others and the determination to strive for strength. This kind of Liu Bu is the one they deserve to follow. After everyone steps down, Liu Bu stood in front of the map of Shuzhou, but he was lost in thought. Chen Deng, Chen Long. Even if I leave, I will give you some color to see. Shuzhou cannot stay any longer, but taking the initiative and being driven away are two different things. Moreover, if Lvbu wants to be in Shuzhou, he can definitely attack and conquer the city. In 10 months, he can ask Shuzhou to replace him with a LV-style banner. But this is meaningless. Staying here is just a consumption of strength. Although I have to leave, it is Jiangdong and Qianlong who have caused me to fall into this situation. If this father and son are not cut off, Lvbu cannot dispel his hatred in his heart. At this time, within the city of Shuzhou, Jiangdong and Qianlong's father and son did not know what had happened. According to Cao Cao's promise to them, in the future, the governor of Shuzhou will be Jiangdong, while Qianlong will be able to serve as the governor of Guangling. Shuzhou city, with more than 10,000 people and horses like Lvbu alone, they would definitely not touch it. But Guangling. Lu Bu will definitely let Jiangdong know what it feels like to lose a son. On the second day, the captured soldiers of the Chao army remained dejected in the camp, waiting for their own fate. Elite soldiers are loved by everyone. So, when feudal lords from various regions capture enemy soldiers, they usually clean them up and put them in the army for their own use. Lu Bu is no exception. In fact, Zhang Liao had already cleared out the Chao army colonels among these prisoners. After eliminating Cao Cao's loyalty, the remaining ordinary soldiers only need to be slightly comforted and led to win 1 or 2 battles. These people will naturally become soldiers of Lu Bu. There are tens of thousands of prisoners here. It was precisely because of these tens of thousands of prisoners that Lu Bu made the decision to rest for 3 days. 3 days is enough to transform these prisoners into soldiers in the Lu Bu army, although it's impossible to work hard, using it to scare people is enough. 3 days later, outside the city of Xiapi, military formations lined up one by one, shrouded in darkness, giving people a heavy and oppressive feeling. The flag of Lu stands tall, hunting in the strong wind. Wearing a beast-faced swallowing head chain armor, hanging a phoenix nirvana cloak, and stepping on tiger skin battle shoes, Lvbu stood on the high platform, watching the military formation below. 8,000 spear warriors, 2,000 crossbowmen, 10,000 wolf cavalry from Bingzhou, 800 trapped camps, and 500 divine machine camps. This is all that Lu Bu has at this time. Sifo Law. The sound of the red hare horse came, like flames, as the red hare horse leaped directly onto the high platform. Lu Bu flipped over and mounted his horse, taking the Fang Tian Hua Ji from the nearby school's hand. With a cold spear pointed straight towards Guangling County. All army, let's go. The strong wind howled in my ears, and the phoenix nirvana cloak behind me fluttered in the wind, like a phoenix soaring into the sky. Lu Bu was riding a red rabbit horse, and his thoughts had already flown to the front of Guangling County. Guangling County is rich in real estate and has a prosperous population. If we capture Guangling County, apart from anything else, people will definitely not be more worried about it. Besides, Guangling also has that bastard Qianlong. Qianlong, just wait, Ben will come. A 20,000-strong army formed a long line and spread to Guangling, bringing Lingren's killing intent to Guangling as well. Guangling, Sheyang County. Although Guangling has 5,000 soldiers, most of them are stationed along the river to guard against Sun Tzu in the east. However, within the county, Chen Xing from Sheyang County did not obey Qianlong's orders and dominated Sheyang. Chen Xing has 2,000 local heroes, and even Qianlong from Guangling City is unwilling to provoke such local snakes. But now, Sheyang County has broken down. Chen Xing's 2,000 so-called rural heroes were really weak in front of the elite who had fought for more than 100 years. Even the 10,000 Chao soldiers just surrendered by Lvbu were fierce soldiers who followed Cao Cao through countless battles. But in just half an hour, Sheyang County was conquered by Zhang Liao's army. Looking at Chen Xing and the children of the Chen family who were brought to him, Lu Bu waved his hand. Like the Chen family in Shuzhou. Cut it off. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Conquering Guangling without leaving a single one behind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Conquering Guangling without leaving a single one behind. Chapter 7. Conquering Guangling without leaving a single one behind. Blood splatters. Head landing. The Qin family, which had dominated Sheyang for 100 years, came to an end. Such a powerful county, in Lu Bu's view, it's really a group of local chickens, tiles, and dogs. Chow Chow and Yuan Shao, send any warrior and lead 500 people to take down. Sitting in the government office of Sheyang County, Liu Bu said, take all the provisions we can bring with us, and if we cannot, distribute them to the entire city. Carry the armor, bows, and crossbows of the soldiers in the treasury, keep the gold and silver, and distribute the remaining money to the soldiers. Let the soldiers rest well for a night, and the soldiers will be sent to Guangling tomorrow. Within Guangling city, Qianlong has received a report from Liu Bu that he has successfully defeated the Chao army. Knowing that Cao Cao's 50,000 elite soldiers were killed by Liu Bu, and even Cao Cao has disappeared without a trace to this day, Qianlong's heart thumped and fell to the bottom. Qianlong is aware of Liu Bu's temperament. He is rebellious and domineering, yet straightforward. He can be said to have taken his heart and lungs out of trusting people, but he also does not conceal his hatred towards those he dislikes. Previously, Jiangdong and Qianlong were able to deceive Liu Bu into playing, relying on Liu Bu's trust in them. But they made such a miserable mess of Liu Bu, according to Liu Bu's temperament, wouldn't they cut down their entire family? Moreover, they had no idea that Liu Bu now had another soul in his body. Even now, Liu Bu is almost on the brink of war in Guangling. How many troops and horses do we have left in Guangling city now? Qianlong asked. Sir, we only have 800 people in Guangling city. Upon hearing that there were only 800 people, Qianlong couldn't help but frown and say, listen, recruit soldiers immediately, at least 2,000 people. The little school didn't understand why the prefect wanted to recruit 2,000 soldiers, but he obediently went and announced the recruitment. According to the prosperity of Guangling, not to mention 2,000 soldiers, it is possible to recruit 5,000 or 6,000 more. However, as soon as the small school left, a messenger rushed in again. Sir. It's not good. What's the situation? So panicked. Qianlong looked at the messenger with a faint sense of unease in his heart. Liu Bu's 20,000-strong army captured Sheyang yesterday and is now heading towards Guangling. What? Qianlong collapsed into his seat and didn't recover for a while. 20,000 soldiers. When did Liu Bu have another 20,000 troops? And, when did he call? Qianlong suddenly realized that he didn't know anything about Liu Bu. When was Liu Bu so decisive and when was he so fierce? Woo! Woo! The horn sounded outside the city. Upon hearing the sound of the horn, Qianlong quickly stood up, disregarding the need to tidy up his clothes and hurriedly ran towards the city wall. After Qianlong arrived at the city wall, what he saw was the dark army ahead. Just this city wall alone has at least tens of thousands of troops. Your Highness, Liu Bu's cavalry has surrounded the remaining city walls. The report from the defending general made Qianlong feel dizzy again. Liu Bu's cavalry surrounded several other city walls, but they didn't want them to escape. The 4 walls of the city are surrounded, and now there are only 800 defenders in the city. How should he defend it? Riding on a red rabbit horse, Liu Bu looked at Qianlong and a group of trembling defenders on the walls of Guangling city, unabashedly wielding a horizontal halberd and a bow. Bow and arrow, the bow is like a thunderbolt and the string is startled. Whoosh! 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 Shoot 6 arrows in a row. 6 Chao army flags on the walls of Guangling were all shot off by Liu Bu. Just this unparalleled archery skill in the world shook the defenders of Guangling's eyes and tongues, and they engaged in 2 battles. Shooting flagpoles is so simple, isn't it the same to shoot their heads? Moreover, there is a 20,000-strong army in the city at this time. Siege. Lu Bu said. Fengxian, won't we persuade surrender? There are only 800 defenders in Guangling city, and they will definitely surrender, Chen Gong asked. I know, but I don't want them to surrender. Lu Bu said calmly. Siege. The junior high school under his command was roaring with exhaustion. Suddenly, the war drum was beaten. Dong! 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 The heavy drumbeat struck in the hearts of Qianlong and the defenders of Guangling. This drum sound is like a dark cloud in the sky, pressing down on all the hearts of Guangling, making them gasp for breath. 2,000 crossbowmen, step forward quickly, under the cover of shield soldiers, shoot dense clusters of arrows towards the city wall. Collapse. Bowstring vibration. 2,000 arrow clusters densely covered the pitiful defenders on the walls of Guangling. For a moment, howls and cries were heard incessantly. How many defenders did a city wall originally have? Faced with this dense barrage of shots, these county soldiers couldn't even lift their heads from being shot, and almost every second their comrades died in agony. Looking at the corpses of their comrades scattered with arrows, these county soldiers undoubtedly collapsed. After 3 rounds of arrow clusters, LV Bu personally took action. A dense cluster of arrows on top of the head continues to suppress the city. Lu Bu galloped forward one by one, firing 2 arrows with a strong bow in his hand. 2 wild goose feather arrows directly broke the rope of the traction suspension bridge in Guangling city. As the heavy suspension bridge descended, the red rabbit horse leaped over the suspension bridge and took LV Bu directly to the gate of Guangling city. All the soldiers widened their eyes as they watched the majestic figure leaping over the suspension bridge. The phoenix's nirvana cloak makes the sound of hunting, and the hand of Fang Tian draws a halberd to cut out the full moon. The full moon sparkles with cold light. Boom! A loud bang. The gate of Guangling city was breached by LV Bu's spear. Boom! The shattered city gate flew out like a shell. Shoot the soldiers of Guangling County who want to seal the city gate behind the city gate away. Those county soldiers were pierced by broken wood at the city gate and flew out without a sound. The county soldiers and newly recruited village soldiers in Guangling city were trembling as they watched the figure at the city gate. Riding on a fiery red rabbit and rouge horse, wearing a beast-faced swallowing head chain armor, with a bright red phoenix nirvana cloak behind, and a sharp Fang Tian Hua halberd in hand. Lu Bu stood alone in front of the gate of Guangling city, and was so frightened that none of the soldiers from Guangling County dared to step forward. Go ahead. A roar echoed from behind, the spear warriors roared towards the city gate and rushed into the city. The soldiers of Guangling County and the newly recruited village soldiers all knelt on the ground, laid down their weapons, and surrendered. They're not stupid, they still want to live. Faced with LV Bu, who was similar to the gods and demons, as well as the fierce army of 20,000, they couldn't even turn the tide. Jun Ho. Qianlong is dead. The little school panted and reported to Lu Bu. Dead. How did you die? Lu Bu asked. He sacrificed himself and died on the city's top with a sword. When he was dying, he wrote this suicide letter. The little school said and handed a farewell letter to Lu Bu. Lu Bu picked up the suicide letter written in blood and couldn't help but laugh as he looked at it. Hee. Are you taking care of everything on your own? Misfortune is not as small as home. Qianlong, what a beautiful idea you have. If I had known this earlier, why did I want to bear it on my own? As he spoke, LV Bu said to the waiting young school on the side, send me an order, Qianlong's family, no one will stay. No. The little school ran to deliver the order. Lu Bu looked at the quiet city of Guangling, his eyes icy cold. This is just the beginning. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Sun Tzu's child dies out of the city. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Sun Tzu's child dies out of the city. Chapter 8. Sun Tzu's child dies out of the city within Guangling city. At this moment, the Chao character flag at the city head has already fallen. Ascending at the head of Guangling city is undoubtedly the Luz flag of Lubu. Within the Guangling prefectural governor's office, Lubu sat at the top, listening to Jiangdong reporting his gains in Guangling. Soldiers, armor, bows, and crossbows were not unexpected. After all, Guangling was originally a large county, and Guangling was responsible for guarding the north of the Yangtze River to prevent the invasion of Sun Tzu in the east. Although there are not many troops, the weapons, armor, bows, crossbows, arrows are well prepared. If necessary, rely on the armor in the arsenal of Guangling city. Guangling can quickly pull out an army of tens of thousands of people. But now, all the armor in the Guangling arsenal has been returned to Lvu. Not only that, but also, there is also the gold and silver in the warehouse of Guangling city, as well as the large amount of grain and grass. Lubu's trip was not a miserable escape, he is carrying a 20,000-strong army. These 20,000 troops, along with tens of thousands of cavalry, add up to nearly 40,000 people and horses. How much food is there for people to chew on horses? The food and grass in Xiapi city have long been eaten up. There is still surplus grain and grass in Sheyang county, but it won't last for a few days. And now it occupies Guangling city. That was really a bountiful harvest. Jiangdong looked at the gold, silver, and grain on the account book, and it was so funny that it was about to bloom. Fengxian, so much grain, grass, gold and silver is enough for our army to support march. So I can rest assured. Lubu nodded, obviously still pondering. What is Fengxian thinking? Jiangdong looked at Lvu and couldn't help but wonder. I was wondering where our army should go next. Guangling is not a place for long-term residence. Lvu stood up and pointed to the map, saying to Jiangdong. Gongtai, wait and see. Now our army is in Guangling, and Shuzhou is already Cao Cao's territory. And below Guangling lies Wu County in the east of the Yangtze River, and to the west lies Yangzhou under Yuanshu. Shuzhou, Yuzhou, and Yanzhou in the north were all under Cao Cao's influence, and even the Sili were under Cao Cao's control. Jiangdong nodded and said. Cao Cao occupied Sili, Shuzhou, Yanzhou, and Yuzhou, which can be said to have occupied the hinterland of the Central Plains, with abundant population and abundant resources. Yuan Shao was in the north, holding Qingzhou, Jizhou, and Bingzhou, and now he is about to take Yuzhou. At that time, Yuan Shao, who had occupied Qingyu and the surrounding areas of Hebei, was bound to engage in battle with Cao Cao. There must be a battle between these two people, and this is also a good opportunity for our development. Lubu said, pointing to the map. I mean, our army will cross Yangzhou, pass through Jingzhou, and enter Guanzhang directly. Jiangdong nodded and said. In the land of Runan, Yuan Shu's exploitation was rampant, and the people were displaced. Various regions rose up one after another, and even the Yellow Turban showed signs of resurgence. If we were to pass through Yangzhou at this time, no one could stop our army, and even attract some refugees. Carrying refugees makes marching inconvenient. However, some of the yellow scarves in Runan can be reorganized. Lubu and Jiangdong are discussing the route to Guangzhong. The messenger rushed in and said, Lord. Lord Jiangdongsheng is also here. Lubu looked at the messenger's somewhat embarrassed expression and couldn't help but frown, saying, What's wrong with this? After taking a breath, the messenger quickly said, Lord, Sun Tzu has called. Sun Tzu. Lvu raised his eyebrows. Where did Sun Tzu have the courage to attack Guangling? Jiangdong frowned and then smiled. I think Sun Tzu probably thought that Qianlong was guarding Guangling and didn't know that our army had already occupied Guangling. Lubu also smiled and said, It should be. Our army defeated Sheyang one day and Guangling the next. Sun Tzu even wanted to break his head, but he didn't expect our army to progress so quickly. Perhaps he thought I was trapped in Xiapi. However, since he dares to come, we must teach him a lesson and let him know that there are some places where he cannot come. Lu Bu said as he reached out his hand, "Someone, wear armor." The heavy beast face swallowing head chain armor was draped over her body, and the maid carefully tied the bright red phoenix nirvana cloak. Lv Bu picked up the nearby Fang Tianhua halberd and said to Gong, "Sir, I plan to visit this Jiangdong little overlord for a while. I would have liked to see how much he weighs and how much he dares to call him the overlord." Upon hearing that Lv Bu was going to find Sun Tzu, Gong quickly approached and said, "Sir, is it unwise to provoke Sun Tzu now?" Lu Bu stopped and looked at Gong, saying seriously, "Sir, I understand what you mean. The current priority of our army is to go to Guanzhang, which is not conducive to fighting against the forces along the way. But, in other words, if we cannot intimidate the surrounding forces with thunderous force, the Guanzhang line will definitely be troublesome along the way. This time, I want everyone to know, don't provoke me." Speaking, Lv Bu had already left the Guangling prefectural governor's office. Pinched my fingers and whistled, with a long hiss, like a blazing fire, the red rabbit and rouge horse rushed towards Lu Bu, the huge horse head affectionately rubbed against Lu Bu's face. Lu Bu also showed a hint of smile, patted the head of the red rabbit horse, and then flipped over and mounted the horse, saying, "Let's go." At this moment, Sun Tzu was proud and said, "Even Chen Long is trying to occupy Guangling." Ling Chao also smiled and said, "Although Guangling is under the jurisdiction of Shuzhou, it does not belong to Shuzhou. In the land of Jianghuai, my children from Jiangdong are much stronger in terms of military strength than his Shuzhou county. Although there are 5,000 soldiers in Guangling county, they are divided along the river. How can we stop the elite of Jiangdong? This time, I want to take Guangling city." Sun Tzu pointed his silver spear in the direction of Guangling city. This time, Sun Tzu came with tens of thousands of children from Jiangdong to fight against Guangling. When Guangling county is in hand, Sun Tzu could overlook the central plains, advance to Shuzhou, and retreat to defend the Yangtze River. Take Guangling county and then take Lujiang county. This is Sun Tzu's strategic intention this time. But Sun Tzu never expected that he would not be facing Guangling Chen Long at all, but Guangling Lv Bu. Boom. 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 The sound of hooves roaring. Lu Bu rode a red rabbit horse and 5,000 Bingzhou wolves out of Guangling, heading south to confront Sun Tzu head-on. At this time, in Jiangdu County, Guangling, Sun Tzu is discussing with generals such as Ling Chao, Cheng Pu, and Han Dang on how to proceed with the next strategic steps. Although Jiangdu County is a large county, it is not Sheyang. Chen Xing, the commander of Sheyang, was a wealthy clan that had been entrenched in Sheyang. He had already disobeyed Chen Long's command and even wanted to occupy Guangling County, so he recruited 2,000 local heroes. However, Jiangdu County followed the orders of Chen Long, the governor of Guangling County, which resulted in Jiangdu County having only 500 garrison soldiers. 500 soldiers from Jiangdu County faced tens of thousands of elite Jiangdong soldiers, and the consequences were self-evident. Sun Tzu went down to Jiangdu in the first battle, and now the walls of Jiangdu have been replaced with the Sun-style flag. The entire army is even more determined and ambitious, attempting to occupy the entire Guangling. It is in this situation that, Lv Bu rode 5,000 Bingzhou wolves to the outskirts of Jiangdu city. Looking at the Sun character flag on the city wall, Lv Bu sneered and arched his bow. Whoosh! 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 3 arrows flew out. Sun Tzu, come out and suffer death. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Defeated Sun Tzu in the Battle of Jiangdong. 3 generals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Defeated Sun Tzu in the Battle of Jiangdong. Three Generals. Chapter 9 Defeating Sun Tzu in the Battle of Jiangdong's Three Generals. The big flag is broken, the flag of the sun character fell from the city. The two sun-shaped flags that originally fluttered on the city were shot off by LV Bu's two arrows, not to mention, the defending general of the city was also shot dead by an arrow given by LV Bu. Report. Lord, if there is an enemy general outside the city, call it a battle. Sun Tzu immediately stood up when he heard an enemy general calling for battle outside the city and said, "What banner are the people here under? Look at the flag, it's Lu Bu." Lu Bu. How could it be Lu Bu? Isn't Lu Bu surrounded by Cao Cao in Xiapi? For a moment, the main generals in Jiangdong were surprised and began to discuss. As soon as Sun Tzu heard that the person was Lu Bu, a strong sense of war immediately appeared in his eyes. That's Lu Bu, the most powerful general in the world. Our martial artists, who is willing to submit to others. Sun Tzu is never weaker than others throughout his life. So Sun Tzu said directly, "Lu Bu, all right. I'll give it a try. How strong is this world's #1 fierce general?" Speaking, Sun Tzu picked up his gun and walked out. Cheng Pu, Han Dang, Ling Chao, and others knew they couldn't stop Sun Tzu, so they all followed suit. If Sun Tzu were to be defeated by LV Bu, they could also be saved, wouldn't they? Outside Jiangdu city, Sun Tzu, dressed in bright silver armor and riding a warhorse, pointed his overlord spear diagonally at the ground and looked at the person across from him who was impressive and unforgettable. Wearing a childish coxcomb on the head, wearing a beast-faced swallowing head chain armor, with a waist tied with 100 flower brocade clusters of gold ribbons, and a phoenix nirvana robe at the back. With a shimmering square sky painting halberd in his hand, coupled with his tall and majestic figure, he has a handsome and dignified face. The rumors of Lu Bu among people and Red Rabbit among horses are not just empty promises. Lu Bu. Sun Tzu recited LV Bu's name and tightly grasped the overlord spear in his right hand. He has always listened to Lu Bu's reputation. Listen to how LV Bu is doing, and how he is fighting against the lords of the world at the Tiger Prison Pass, shaking the world. But Sun Tzu has always believed that if it were himself, it could be the same. But when facing Lu Bu today, the immense pressure in your heart, including trembling arms, told Sun Tzu that only when you truly face Lu Bu can you know what the concept of facing the world's top general is. Lu Bu moved. The red rabbit horse began to run wildly, flying with 4 hooves. "My body is like a blazing fire." The red rabbit horse ran like a raging fire, carrying Lu Bu on its back and charging straight towards Sun Tzu. Drive. Sun Tzu also moved. Sun Tzu knows he can't quit now. And the young people's hard work and ruthlessness made Sun Tzu dare to go all out. Looking at Lu Bu, feeling the terrifying pressure and terrifying killing intent that Lu Bu was rushing towards him like a mountain, Sun Tzu braved the pressure and stabbed the overlord spear at Lu Bu. Cold light flickers. The overlord spear came straight at Lu Bu's throat from an extremely tricky angle. Bang! Feng Tianhua's halberd waved casually with LV Bu, directly smashing the overlord spear off the side. Then, LV Bu held the halberd alone and used the inertia of Feng Tianhua's halberd to fiercely chop it down from top to bottom. Boom! Gold and iron intertwine. Sun Tzu held the overlord spear in both hands and forcefully blocked Lu Bu's powerful and heavy blow. The corresponding consequence was that Sun Tzu's arms were numb and even unconscious in a short period of time due to the terrifying force that shook them. Han Dang, Cheng Pu, and Ling Chao, the 3 generals, also noticed something was wrong and immediately rode forward. "Lu Bu, don't harm my lord." With a roar, Cheng Pu released his sword from his hand and headed straight towards Lu Bu. Faced with Cheng Pu's angry strike, Lu Bu lightly tapped Feng Tianhua's halberd in his hand, and then knocked Cheng Pu's sword away. And Sun Tzu also took advantage of this opportunity to quickly step back. "Do you want to run? Have you asked Ben?" Lu Bu sneered and rode forward. The Red Rabbit horse is the most famous horse in the world, how fast it is. In the blink of an eye, it caught up with Sun Tzu. Looking at the disheveled Sun Tzu, Lv Bu narrowed his eyes slightly and slowly raised the Fong Tianhua Ji in his hand, starting to gather momentum. Sun Tzu also felt the killing intent behind him that firmly locked him in, but he couldn't escape now. As Lu Bu was about to take action, Han Dang and Ling Chao rushed forward with all their might and finally rushed to Sun Tzu's side. Lu Bu Pifu, stop. Han Dang and Ling Chao both struck at the same time, wielding a large knife from both directions and cutting towards Lu Bu's neck and waist. Obviously, these two had a tacit cooperation. Watching two large knives with the sobbing sound of the wind rushing towards me, however, Lu Bu let out a cold snort and rose into the air, avoiding the joint attack of Han Dang and Ling Chao. At the same time, he aimed his Fong Tianhua halberd at Sun Tzu and stabbed him directly. The sharp tip of Fong Tianhua's halberd pierced Sun Tzu's heart. Upon seeing this scene, Sun Tzu felt like his soul was rising. He doesn't want to die yet. How long has it been since he inherited his father's beliefs and occupied Jiangdong? He hasn't completed his big business yet. Between life and death, Sun Tzu flipped over and rolled off his horse. Sun Tzu forcefully fell off the running warhorse and was directly hit hard. The back collided heavily with the ground, and on the spot, a mouthful of blood spurted out. Puff. At this moment, Sun Tzu was lying on the ground, his bones as if scattered, and he couldn't move. But Sun Tzu's warhorse was pierced by Lu Bu's halberd in the neck, and by now it had fallen to the ground, bleeding profusely. Obviously, it could not be saved. Looking at the warhorse that had accompanied him for a long time, Sun Tzu said that it was fake if he didn't feel sorry. But compared to one's own life, if a warhorse dies, it will also die, and it can still be exchanged. The most important thing now is to keep Lu Bu. Han Dang. Cheng Pu. Ling Chao. Leave Lu Bu behind. We must not let him go back. Sun Tzu roared and shouted. He's scared, he's really scared. He only realized after fighting against Lu Bu that he was just a toad sitting in a well and observing the sky before. He almost died in the hands of Lu Bu, as he only had 2 chances in a fight. The terror of Lu Bu has been deeply engraved in Sun Tzu's heart, and this fear will make him so weak that he won't even be able to lift his gun the next time he faces Lu Bu. So Sun Tzu wanted to keep Lv Bu here. Only when Lv Bu died will his inner demons dissipate. Upon hearing Sun Tzu's shout, Lu Bu couldn't help but sneer, wanting to keep him here. With these 3 alone. Kill. Han Dang and Ling Chao switched their horses and swung their swords towards Lu Bu. Not only Han Dang and Ling Chao, but also Cheng Pu picked up his battle knife and charged towards Lu Bu. 3 people working together, they are about to kill Lu Bu here. Now Lu Bu has no horses, and they have war horses to assist them. Under the charge of the war horses, it is not a problem to cut the person in half with 1 strike. Watching Han Dang, Ling Chao, and Cheng Pu riding warhorses and wielding large knives charging towards him, Lv Bu's eyes narrowed slightly and his muscles tightened tightly. This kind of battle is really interesting. Kill. 3 more knives fell together, and the sobbing sound of the wind made one shudder. Looking at the 3 fallen battle knives, Lu Bu's Fong Tianhua halberd fiercely slashed a silver line of training. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Slaying the 3 generals of Jiangdu City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Slaying the 3 generals of Jiangdu City. Chapter 10. Formation/3 generals. Jiangdu City surrender. Silver training flickers. The glaring cold light almost blinded Han Dang, Cheng Pu, and Ling Chao. They only felt a tremor in their arms. It seems that the sword in hand has become much lighter. Opening their eyes, the 3 of them couldn't help but be shocked. I saw only half of the knife shaft left in the hands of the 3 of them. The smooth mirror-like surface of the blade told them what had just happened. Looking at the heads of the 3 war knives inserted on the ground, Han Dang, Cheng Pu, and Ling Chao's gaze at Lu Bu was not right. Now, Lu Bu, it's even more terrifying than Lu Bu during the Tiger Prison Pass. Lu Bu's strength not only did not decline with age, but also improved by more than 1 level. Lu Bu, whose strength is getting stronger and stronger, far surpassing Lu Bu at the Tiger Prison Pass, how terrifying should that be? Nowadays, Lu Bu told them, what is the number 1 in the world? Sifo Law. The warhorses roar. The red rabbit horse leaped up and rushed towards Lu Bu's side. Later, Lu Bu pulled the reins and flipped over to get on the horse. Looking at the 3 generals in Jiangdong who were still in shock, Lu Bu rushed forward without hesitation. Hurry up. Block him. Han Dang and Cheng Pu reacted extremely quickly. The 2 of them threw away their swords and drew out their battle swords from their waist to resist Lu Bu's attack. But how could the attack of the world's top general be so easily resisted? Fang Tian painted a halberd waving in the shape of a crescent moon, and a silver light fell from his training. In a flash of cold light, blood splattered. A blood line appeared on Han Dang's forehead, extending all the way to his waist. Looking at the broken sword in his hand, Han Dang seemed to understand something. The next moment, helmets shattered. Han Dang sprayed a shower of blood in front of him. The whole person split in half from head to waist. Han Dang. Cheng Pu and Ling Chao watched with grief as their comrades in the same robe died in front of them, their grief and anger indescribable in words. But this is just the beginning. Whether it's Han Dang, Ling Chao, or Cheng Pu, Lu Bu has no intention of staying. Kill! Ling Chao roared and charged towards Lu Bu with his sword in hand. Han Dang's death was very stimulating for Ling Chao, and now it is obvious that Ling Chao is going to work hard with LV Bu. Ling Chao. Be careful. Cheng Pu watched Ling Chao rush forward with such indifference, there was no time to stop him. Seeking death. Lu Bu looked at Ling Chao, who was covered in flaws all over, and looked very disdainful. Are you really a demon god when anger surges up and blood turns red in your eyes? Ling Chao raised his sword high, his hair draped and his eyes bloodshot as if he were crazy, roaring towards Lu Bu. With his center wide open, he clearly had no intention of defending. Even Ling Chao rushed forward with the idea of himself and LV Bu dying together. If LV Bu knew Ling Chao's thoughts, he would definitely couldn't help but ridicule him. Do you deserve to die together? Sigh. The red hare horse is running wildly. The red rabbit horse galloped like a raging fire, and in an instant, its speed reached its peak. On the back of the fiery red rabbit horse, the phoenix nirvana robe behind LV Bu made a hunting sound, reflecting the whole person as if he were a divine general. Both sides are intertwined in battle. Before Ling Chao could wave his sword in his hand, Lu Bu's Fang Tian Hua Ji had already fallen. The crescent blade of Fang Tian's painted halberd drew a dazzling arc in the air. The sharp crescent blade elegantly curved and cut off Ling Chao's head. The warhorse was still galloping, while Ling Chao's head had already tumbled to the ground. Turn the horse around, Lu Bu looked at the only remaining Cheng Pu and hooked his hand, saying, come on. At this moment, there were several splattered bloodstains on LV Bu's beast face swallowing head chain armor, and the phoenix nirvana robe behind him even turned even more brilliant red. The red rabbit horse snorted, its front hooves scraping the ground, as if preparing to charge. Cheng Pu knew that Lu Bu could not let himself go. With a bite of his teeth, Cheng Pu immediately galloped towards Lu Bu. He can die, but Sun Tzu must live. Lord! Quickly withdraw. Cheng Pu shouted and rushed towards Lu Bu. Cheng Pu. Sun Tzu clenched his teeth tightly and almost shed blood and tears in his eyes. He led 3 generals on the expedition, and now 2 have been killed in action. Even Cheng Pu, I'm afraid he will soon be the ghost of Lu Bu's halberd. How could he bear it from his initial high spirits to the current situation? Lord, hurry back to the city. Master. Quickly withdraw. Two young generals from Jiangdong hurriedly rode over, grabbed Sun Tzu, and ran towards Jiangdu city. But Cheng Pu, on the other hand, rushed towards Lu Bu without hesitation. Touch. Gold and iron intertwine. The majestic force transmitted from the battle sword almost made veteran generals like Cheng Pu almost let go. And then, with the help of this inertia, Lu Bu bounced up the Fang Tianji and then used his strength to cut a cold light from bottom to top. Cheng Pu was able to resist even harder. 2 strikes. Just 2 strikes. Cheng Pu's sword was riddled with cracks, and Lu Bu didn't even need to exert too much force. With just a gentle touch, Cheng Pu's sword would shatter into pieces. Kill. Cheng Pu let out his final roar and fiercely slashed at Lu Bu with his sword in his hand. The sobbing and hissing of the broken wind. Fang Tianhua's halberd fell diagonally, with a silver cold light accompanied by splashing blood. With a dull falling sound, Jiangdong General Cheng Pu died in battle. At this point, the battle is nothing more than a stick of incense. Jiangdong Generals Cheng Pu, Han Dang, and Ling Chao all died under the halberd of Lu Bu. The world's #1 warrior once again declared to the world what it means to be the world's #1. The number of slaying generals never exceeds 3, and even ordinary generals cannot resist 1. Looking at the tightly closed city gate of the Jiangdong army, Lu Bu could sense their morale plummeting to the bottom. The main general was defeated, and 3 major generals died in battle. Now that the Jiangdong army can still defend the city, it indicates that the previous leaders Sun Jian and Sun Tzu have done a good job. Compared to Sun Tzu's low morale, Lu Bu's army is full of fighting spirit. The opponent has defeated all the masters, and our own side still has the unparalleled LV Bu in the world. Isn't this battle a must-win one? Leaving his horse forward, Lu Bu rode a red rabbit horse and looked at the trembling Jiangdong defenders on the city wall, coldly saying, "I will give you 2 choices. First, abandon the city and surrender, would have given you a way to survive. Secondly, defend the city to the death, and when the city is destroyed, no one will stay behind." Lu Bu's voice reached the city, and the defenders in Jiangdu immediately began to discuss. Facing Lu Bu, not everyone can rush forward as bravely as Sun Tzu. And everyone saw the consequences of Sun Tzu's actions, as he was severely injured and 3 of his generals died in battle. No one in Jiangdu city is willing to face Lu Bu now. But Sun Tzu is still in the city. When the atmosphere in the entire city was not right, those loyal generals of the Sun family had to step forward to suppress it. Finally, it was the loyal generals of the Sun family who escorted Sun Tzu back to Jiangdong with their personal guards. Jia, the gates of Jiangdu city have opened. One after another, soldiers from Jiangdong left the city and dropped their weapons. A young general ran to Lu Bu and knelt on the ground, saying, "Wen Ho, we surrender. Please keep your promise and not kill us. Jiangdu city, surrender." End of this chapter.